Dr. Tanmay. I welcome you all. I welcome you all on behalf of AOSI. This is our third meeting, and I'm proud to say that last two meetings were a grand success. So we had more than 50 participants, sessions were interactive, and that's why we have come up with a very interesting topic today. The topic for today is complications in orthopedics. It is said that a very good surgeon is defined by how he manages his complications, and a very wise orthopedic surgeon is the one who learns from complications of others. So today we are going to learn from our eminent speakers. We have with us today Dr. Aseem Negi sir, Dr. Prasad Padgaonkar, Dr. Arvind Rawal sir, Dr. Shailesh Gupta, and Dr. Rishi Gupta. Chairperson for today, Dr. Jayant Sharma sir, Dr. Manish Ladhania as co-chairperson, and Dr. Bhupesh Mahavar as repertoire. So after every presentation, we will have questions. I would request all the audience to interact as much as they can. So without wasting any more minute, I invite Dr. Aseem Negi sir to start his presentation. Sir, you can share your screen.
Yeah.
Let me try. Yeah, switch account is
Share screen.
The format people have to be told to mute them.
Yeah.
yeah, switch the account, but still it is showing. Yeah.
ये फुल स्क्रीन कैसे होएगा भाई? हो नहीं रहा अभी तो हुआ था.
From beginning sir.
हाँ बिगनिंग. तो स्लाइड शो में नहीं जा रहा है बड़ा.
सबसे नीचे सर वो वाला जो आइकन है फुल स्क्रीन वाला,
ये
आपके उस पे
नॉर्मल स्लाइड शॉर्टर.
उसके बगल में सर, और बगल में
रीडिंग व्यू नहीं.
के बाद वाला
रीडिंग व्यू के बगल वाला सर.
राइट सर. स्लाइड शो. हाँ.
दैट्स इट.
या. सो अपन इसको तो बंद कर दो. This is a 5 months old malunited Hoffa with stiff knee. He was a 45-year-old male, sustained a fresh fracture, no neurovascular deficit. Actually, he tried to contact me at that time and then he disappeared. There were many phone calls. Lata hu sahab, lata hu, and then he disappeared. After 4 or 5 months, I just forgot about the patient. After 5 months, I was just scrolling my computer and noticed this fracture. So I knew his brother. So I called him. Rarely ever called any patient. मैंने क्या हुआ उसका मिथिलेश? तो बोला साहब वो ऐसा ऐसा है और अभी बड़ा तकलीफ है. मैंने लाके दिखा. This is what was done. This was the X-ray at 6 weeks post-op done somewhere else. Can somebody read this X-ray? Hello, Akshay, am I audible? Sir. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah, so Manish or anybody?
Manish sir, you can unmute.
It's unmuted.
Yeah.
Yeah, Manish. Any comments on this fixation?
See, you need to have a good CT scan before, ideally.
Okay.
But this is not a true lateral. You should get a true lateral view over here.
Where both the condyles are superimposed.
It is superimposed. So we should get a true lateral, and then we can decide. Yes.
Plus, if you notice on this X-ray, this is a notch.
Double shadow.
Yeah. So this is a notch. There is a double shadow here. One here, another line, and here also. This is the medial condyle.
Yes.
And you can see that anterior cortex of the lateral condyle. This is
not matching
upper margin. There is a huge gap, almost more than a centimeter of gap. This is the remaining thing. So even on the X-ray, you get a lot of information. Double line here, step, large step. Plus, if you trace the notch, these two screws are almost in the intercondylar notch. So they will either damage the cruciate insertion or they will block the motion. So 5 months post-op, he was like this. At 6 weeks, whosoever had operated, he should have consulted somebody either or acted on his own on this information. 5 months down the line, it is like this. This is all what he had. This much was the flexion. There was a huge flexion deformity and pain, limp, couldn't walk. Here is the CT scan. This is the screw which is going bang through the notch here. Here is the notch, and this is the notch there. Plus, if you see the 8 second. Actually, this view is obstructing it. But if you see the laterals, yeah, here it is. This piece is the strap here, and plate has almost entirely missed this fragment. Hardly any purchase in the Hoffa fragment. So it never got reduced and was never fixed. There was no CT scan done pre-operatively. That also was surprising because the surgeon used a titanium plate, which is far more expensive than a stainless steel plate. So the same amount of money he could have spent on getting a proper CT scan. Any intra-articular fracture, I feel that the CT scan is a must. So these are some more views, and this is. So
pre-op X-ray is also available. Jayan sir
Yep.
is asking. Sir.
yeah.
First surgery.
Yeah, it's here. It's here. It was a big chunk, non-comminuted Hoffa, juicy Hoffa. Nice one to begin with doing them. So the money spent on a titanium plate could have been easily spent on a CT scan. So this is how it was. 6 weeks. If things are not okay, all of us make mistake, but then seek help. Don't sleep over it. That should be the message. All intra-articular fractures should be operated upon only after doing a CT scan. Yeah, this is how the patient was. So he is never going to be okay. So much of pain, limb, flexion deformity, hardly any range of motion there, but no infection, fortunately. Screws in the canal there, intercondylar notch there. So I proceed or we seek opinion what to do now?
एक बार आप प्रोसीड कर लीजिए फिर बाद में सर अपन
अच्छी बात है, ठीक है. So when I am operating intercondylar humerus, TY femur, and there is a Hoffa element, my position is almost invariably supine with a bump beneath the knee. If I am doing medial Hoffa, then my patient is supine and I use something like a figure of 4 and go on the opposite side. Suppose right side medial Hoffa I am doing, then the leg will be lying in the external rotation, which is the normal position. I use a subvastus. I generally put an autoclaved Ashmark. I don't use that unsterile tourniquet for any one of these things. Autoclaved Ashmark, which I remove as soon as my articular part is over, I remove that. So medial Hoffa, supine position, figure of 4 or natural external rotation position and a subvastus approach. For a lateral Hoffa, fresh case, I'll operate in supine position with a bump beneath the hip and same autoclaved Ashmark. And a posterior lateral approach is the standard swashbuckler type of old approach, and a orthotomy lower down going towards the tibial tuberosity. But if my posterior part of that Hoffa is very small, sometimes I will expose it posterior laterally. If it's really very small and I want to pass the screws from back to front. Old cases, malunions, my preferred position for a lateral Hoffa is a lateral position. And this is the type of bump I put. So you can give a varus stress to open up the joint and see inside. So if you don't want a varus strain, then you can just shift this bump and leg will be in the neutral position. My red line shows my Legge S type of incision, which I normally like to take. This is not sharp. I couldn't draw that lazy S, but this is something like a lazy S here, going here, so that when my screws are going from headless compression screws or 4 mm conceless screws, they are going from front to back. I can see the top and the trochlea part here. Then I can see the whole articular surface of the lower end of the femur from front to almost to the back, and posteriorly the Hoffa part is exposed. Here it's coming up to the tibial tuberosity. The arthrotomy is in this part, and the vastus lateralis and the whole thing is reflected with a spike. Lower down, there is an attachment of LCL here and popliteus, which you should preserve. Sometimes you will be forced to put your plate over the lateral collateral ligament. So don't dissect it. Just put it over it. If it's irritating, then you can always take it out at 6 months. In this patient, there was already a scar which was hardly 5 months old. So I used the same scar which was given by the first surgeon. The main issue was quadriceps plasty. This patient had absolutely no movement. So you can't see the articular surface till you remove all the adhesions binding patella to the trochlea. You have to release quads, release the IT band, then quads from the femur. Don't be subperiosteal. Try to leave a layer of fat on the between the quadriceps and the femur bone there. That soft tissue will allow better gliding of the muscle, and you start releasing quads from femur proximal you go from distal to proximal. Incised deep fascia, patella is adherent. Sometimes you will have to really osteotomize the patella from the trochlea. Gently do that, and you can see that all this, my arrow is pointing out the fibrous bands. So meticulously with strong scissor or cautery or knife, you have to go on releasing this till you reach the medial gutter. Release lateral gutter beneath the patella and then go medially. You can pass a curved artery beneath the patella in the medial gutter and open up that artery, or use your strong scissor to remove fibrous bands. Sometimes there will be atrocious bleeding because of the genicular. You will have to tackle it, or worse come to worse, you may have to take a small medial incision and coagulate that vessel. Don't leave a pool of blood there. But you have to release the medial gutter also. Then only you will be able to improve the range of motion. This is the previous plate which was put. Anterior half of the distal femur articular surface is barely seen at this stage. We are already more than an hour during surgery. Range of motion is gradually increasing. Please do not remove the implant till your knee is mobile. Finally, we freed the quadriceps and both gutters, and then Rishi was there, so he is more courageous, so he manipulated it gently and achieved so much of flexion. And then the implant was removed. Once the knee has been mobilized, after that we removed the implant. In extension, if you lift the quadriceps with this right angle retractor, you can inspect the anterior part of the articular surface. But in extension, you will not see the posterior parts. For seeing the posterior part of the articular surface, you have to flex the knee. So you have to go on changing the position of the knee from extension to flexion, whichever part you want to see. Now, you can see the posterior malunited part. This is the part which is lying much below the original articular surface. So here is the malunion. Gently dissect, and in this part, one more precaution is there. Distally, the lateral meniscus is not far away. So please, when you are doing all this jugglery, don't cut the meniscus and don't separate it from the capsule. So you have to stay safe. All this is very patient surgery. So here the K-wire is marking the apex of the malunited Hoffa. After 5 months, you can't see where the apex is. So this is all radiological jugglery. You make up your mind that this is the apex. It's located under image intensifier. And fortunately, we have got a beautiful IITV and the person who understands what we are doing. So he is very cooperative. Technician is also important. Now, here is a blunt periosteum, narrow one. I am marking the distal articular surface anteriorly. Then I kept it here. Then I traced the whole posterior border with this curved small periosteum. So I know this is my articular surface, and this is the place where I want to bring up this. Now I have got the apex, I have got the distal part, and you have to mark the point. Interarticular osteotomy will exit distally. So this point is this K wire is at the point where osteotomy will exit, and here is the apex. So now I am making multiple K wire drill holes along the proposed plane of osteotomy, which mimics the original fracture. And this has to be checked in multiple views many times so that you don't make a false passage there. You want original fracture to open. Then having done this, then K wires are replaced with multiple drill holes in the plane of osteotomy, and then I use a thin flexible osteotomy. This osteotomy is really flexible, very thin. You don't want to damage bone there. You can see that the osteotomy is bending. It's about 10 mm, made by an Indian company, and is lasting for last 25 years, I think, more than 25 years. It has not broken. Yeah. So after that, you gently complete the osteotomy by osteoclasis. Having cut 90%, the remaining part you just allow it to crack somewhere. So the osteotomy has been completed. First attempt to reduce the intra-articular step. We knew that this fragment is lying rotated and distal. So what we thought was a good reduction, we tried to do that, but first attempt to reduce was a disaster. This is what was seen. So if you carefully look, the surface is here of the Hoffa, the lateral condyle is here. So practically what looked like a good reduction, we achieved nothing. Then we removed this, don't accept a compromised reduction. At this point, Rishi pointed out that there is a lot of bone formed in this area. So thanks to him, a triangular piece of bone was rejected. And even if you remove little more bone from this area proximally, nothing will happen. Femur is very broad in this area. So we made a trough by mentally calculating that how much we should remove. Second thing was, this Hoffa piece has to be internally rotated. So the more bone was removed anteriorly rather than posteriorly. We removed less bone posteriorly, we removed more bone anteriorly, and we removed a triangular wedge of bone. So this is a triangular wedge of bone which we are ready to remove. And now my towel clip is pulling it proximally. My blunt broad periosteum, which is curved, is pushing this fragment from behind intra-articularly, is pushing it up. The towel clip is pushing it, pulling it up proximally and rotating also at the same time. And I'm trying to put my first clamp, and that wedge of bone which we have removed is allowing it to move upward now and internally. The reduction is better than what we achieved first time. This is second time reduction, and this is the third or maybe even fourth or fifth attempt at reduction. But now you can see that it's looking great. So that's it. Then under image magnifier control, the first K wire, this is from the apex going anteriorly, another K wire and a clamp. So 3-point fixation for this. And the first X-ray, we put the plate here. On radiological imaging, we realized that probably we can move this plate distally little more without compromising the flexion. So plate was further moved. So don't be in a hurry. All these surgeries take 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours sometimes. So plate was distally moved 8 mm almost, so that we get more screws through this segment into the Hoffa fragment. But at the same time, you have to be careful that you will not compromise the flexion. When this tibia will come here, you should get full flexion. So you can't go really too lower down. So LCP was moved distally and anteriorly for better coverage of Hoffa fragment. It's an anti-glide plate, and the bone grafts taken was packed in the crevices which were remaining after the triangular wedge of piece of bone was used as bone graft, I think. I don't remember whether I took iliac crest graft or not. And first screw is a 3.5 mm cortical screw in the oblong hole here. This is an anti-glide plate. So this screw is 3.5 cortical, trying to buttress this plate as an anti-glide plate against the posterolateral part of the femur. So that's it. And then you can replace gently the K-wires with the headless compression screws, and then there are multiple screws passing from this anti-glide plate into the distal fragment. This is the HCS which has been put, and again check. And you have to check that no screw is interarticular, no screw is in the canal here. The reduction is looking nice, and this is also important. Post-operatively, this patient was tied up in 120 degree of flexion. If you don't do this, he will again get stuck up in 0 degree extension. So this patient was kept in 120 degree flexion for few hours. When he started howling, we removed this, but on the same day, day 0, in the evening, he had 90 degree of flexion. He has got no leg because no formal quadriceps plasty was done. What I learned from my guru, we never do a Thompson type of quadriceps plasty. We just make multiple Z nicks in the tight tissue here or there, and flexion goes on increasing. So there is no formal lengthening, Z lengthening of the rectus or intermedius. Anything which is tight is gently cut and nicked with multiple Zs, small Z incisions, and you just go on increasing the flexion and you will be able to reach up to here. But there is no leg on the same day. And this is his 5 months X-ray. You can see that joint looks pristine, and this is his flexion, this is his extension. 10 degree leg is still probably there, 5 degree leg. And if I show him walking, he's back to his farmer job as a farmer, and is already walking almost. Yeah, this is it.
Sir, excellent presentation.
Yes, sir.
I have any questions?
Wonderful.
Everyone can unmute themselves and talk to sir directly.
Sir, how early do you tell them to start mobilizing?
Day 0, that was evening. What you saw at 90 degree. The
And this is
patient was
usually
tied
all
up
the-
in 120 degree.
This
Yeah.
is usually doing all the Hoffa fractures, or
Every single Hoffa. I think I posted, or I'm going to,
Yeah,
either
yeah.
I have already posted about 7
Yes.
days back.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was the range. 100, almost 95, 100 on the same evening, no leg. Next day it was 110. If patient is cooperative, then by the end of first week they have got a full range, but no weight bearing. No heroics regarding weight bearing. Weight bearing, rather, I am more protective than what book says. Book says 6 weeks they can weight bear. I ask them 8 weeks at least.
8 weeks.
8 weeks non-weight bearing.
Okay. And no knee brace or something?
No brace, no brace. Actually, almost 1999, I did a Hoffa and used those 6.5 screws, 98, I think. I used two 6.5 screw, which book recommended, and then protected him for 6 weeks, and that patient had a 20 degree flexion deformity and 120 degree of flexion. So, maja nahi aaya. So, that was the last I used 6.5 screws. After next patient came, I started using 4 mm screws, and those days I used to use those non-locking plates were there, no locking plates. So non-locking 3.5 distal radius plate, Alice plate jisko bolta tha.
Yeah.
So since that 97 I came from Bombay. So 98 I screwed up that patient, and that was the last. Uske baad se 6.5 screws were dumped, 4 mm screws. When book was not talking about it, I started using 4 mm multiple screws and a Alice plate. And then the patient was in a crab bandage. So uske baad se shayad hi kisi Hoffa ka knee stiff hua hoga. And now the book says कि सबने लगाना मांगता plate. उस समय कोई भी, when I used to show it in TraumaCon and the other conferences, all those oldies will say, तुम कितना लोहा डालता है? Ankle fusion, I have never used the Chanley clamp after 87. Yeah, after MY, because boss doesn't use, and since long time we are using 4 mm screw, 6.5 screws and the plate. अभी हर कोई वो लगाता है, और वो नया कैम्बल अभी 2020 का आया तो बोलता है एंकल फ्यूजन करो तो फिबुला को प्लेट जैसा यूज करो, और अब 20 साल से लगा रहा है यार फिबुला को lateral osteotomy कर गया. Yeah, you decorticate the fibula and you put that fibula in the tibia lower end and the talus and put 3.53 screws, 4 screws. That's a biological plate. So last 20 years no ankle fusion has been done without a plate. अब किताब बोलता है कि प्लेट लगाना मांगता है, 2 प्लेट लगाओ ऐसा बोलता है किताब.
Very nice presentation, sir.
Yes sir.
Very nice presentation.
Yeah, very nice.
Very complex fracture.
Thank you very much sir. Thank you.
So I think no more questions. We will move on to next case. Dr. Arvind Raval sir, can you share your screen?
I will unshare एक
जी
second
sir.
इसको.
Yes sir.
Stop share. Yeah.
Sir, we call you Metal Man of Indore.
जी sir. Thank you.
Very rightly. Ravi, can you see me? My screen?
Yes, yes.
So good morning, everybody. So the theme of the today's meeting is complications in orthopedics. And if you are an arthroplasty surgeon, then periprosthetic fractures are a nightmare. And I'm going to take you through the journey of this unfortunate patient who is a reasonably young 58-year-old lady. And let's see what happens. So in 2019, this lady had standard bilateral osteoarthritis.
Akshay, I'm not able to see the screen.
Yes sir. Yes sir. I cannot also. Raval sir, we cannot see
That's
your
what I
screen.
asked. You can't see the screen.
You share it again, sir. Unshare and share it again.
All right then.
Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yes sir. Now we can see.
All right. So let's begin the journey of this unfortunate lady. So 2019, this was her first X-ray when she came to the arthroplasty surgeon because she was having significant problems. And standard knee replacement, she underwent bilateral total knee replacement in the same sitting, not done by me. But you can see that it's a very well knee replacement done. There is no notching of the femur, which is one of the commonest causes of femoral fractures if you notch the femur. So it's a well done knee replacement, but this unfortunate patient, someone's mic is...
Please unmute. We'll just...
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes sir.
Okay. Unfortunately, this lady fell down on a wet floor at home 2 months down the total knee replacement and sustained this. Now, so what should we do? She went back to the surgeon, and then I would like everybody to participate. What do you think? What would we do, and what should be our thought process? Anybody, or shall I go ahead? What was done and everything. Anybody want to comment on this? What would be their plan, and how will they decide?
What type of knee is this? That should be the first information. Which knee? Box wala hai, bagher open box hai, kya hai?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that can be seen in the notes. It's a cruciate substituting knee. And when you are seeing this kind of fractures, then there are lots of classification about periprosthetic fractures, Rohrer-Beck classification or a Kim's classification. But these fractures are complex, and every fracture is a different kind in itself. So what I do is, classification is for your knowledge and understanding, but what matters in decision making are these things. First thing we need to know is the implant loose? If the implant is loose, then obviously you can't fix it. You have to do a revision surgery. But if the implant is fixed, which is in this case, which is a recently done. Second thing is there a possibility of infection? That will also again change the management. So I usually would aspirate these hematoma or the joint to get a sample and rule out infection along with blood tests like ESR, CRP. But ESR, CRP are unreliable because of the fracture, they will be increased anyway. Next is it fixable? So for that, we need three things. What is the fracture pattern? In this case, it's almost a transverse or a short oblique type of fracture, not a long spiral fracture, which is present in many cases, but this is short fracture. Next is, what is the quality of the bone? So you look at these fractures, younger patients, so relatively good quality bone is there, but the drawback is there is a very little bone stock is seen on these films. And if you decide that, okay, we'll fix it, then you have to think about implant choice and reduction strategy. So what are the implant choices? Well, either you can use a retrograde nail or use a plate fixation or external fixation. External fixation, not a good idea in periprosthetic fracture because of the wires and other things. Infection is likely much more. So either a nail or plate. I personally would do plating in this case, but nail is a very good alternative and very good implant because it does load sharing and we can weight bear the patients quickly. So this was done, not done by me, but this was done. Any comments on this fracture fixation? Akshay, you have to
Asim
ask
sir.
somebody.
Yes,
Asim
yes, sir. Asim sir wants to say.
You can give the expert opinion later, Dr. Asim.
Okay.
Sir, Jayant sir, anything? Manish sir?
Because Dr. Asim was involved in this case as well. So, any positive?
Divyanshu has joined. Dr. Divyanshu Goyal, can you ask something?
Yes,
Any
Divyanshu.
comment from your side?
It's a better lateral view to see the reduction because in the AP it looks okay, but
Okay. So this is the X-ray we
and
have.
the wire also has been put. I don't know why. What's that purpose that K wire is serving there?
Yeah. And a plate is also put.
Yeah, that plate is just probably giving a very probably a rotational stability better because you don't know the screws and there is not even the proximal fixation. You can't see whether it's being locked or not.
It's locked actually upstairs.
Okay. Right.
Above. So if we talk about this X-ray, the good points first, it looks very good reduction. If you follow the line, it's a very, very good reduction has been achieved intraoperatively. Although it's not true lateral, but you can see that it is on both views, the reduction has been achieved nicely. The fixation was done by intramedullary retrograde nail, which I think is a good option, but in India, we don't have the proper nails to fix this kind of fracture. If we use intramedullary nail will in such fractures with little bone stock, you need the nails like this where you can use multiple screws diagonally and straight, at least 3 screws. But if we have used this nail, it would have given better stability. But if you see this picture,
Only one distal locking.
only one distal locking is available, and we don't have this Zimmer nail available in India. When I asked this for some of the fractures I fixed before, so I always use a plate to fix these. So when we fixed, when very good reduction, fixation was done by the nail, but obviously the surgeon was not happy with the fixation because only one screw is distally. So they augmented it with a plate. Now, if you use a plate through the anterior incision and a lateral plate to be put on, you will be compromised. It's a very small free loss plate put upside down. And the third thing is the K wires which were used to reduce, they were left thinking that they will add to the stability. But these smooth K wires are very unlikely to add the stability. So the problem in this on day one was the stability was compromised. So when you continue following this at 6 months, you see that these K-wires started to migrate. So she went another to the OT. Somebody removed the K-wire and hope there is some indication that this fracture wants to unite. There is callus formation here. You can see that. So it was hoped that probably the fracture will unite. Just remove this K-wire, which is going to puncture the skin. So patient continued to walk, continued to complain of pain and not weight bearing even at 6 months. And then at 10 months, again, you see that that screw seems to be broken here. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because the internet was unstable, it said to me in between. So, but the one X-ray which is missing, which I lost, which also showed that at 10 after this X-ray, this K-wire started to move as well. So she underwent another operation. This broken screw was removed, and that migrating wire was removed as well. Still, nothing was done to. This was the stage when we should think that if the screw is getting broken, wires are migrating, that means the fracture is not uniting. And then, sorry. So 12 months later, she came to me. There was hematoma here. So I aspirated the hematoma. And then still, now you can see that still the nail is there. It is holding, but the wire and screws have been removed. And she was asked that we should fix this fracture, remove this and do a further surgery, but they were thinking about it. And 2 months later, she came back in emergency that she was not able to weight bear and significant pain. And now what you can see is the nail is broken. So obviously the fracture was not united and patient was very unhappy. So what should we do now? At 14 months, again we go back to square one. If it is still, although it is a revision, it will be a revision surgery, whether to fix or whether to replace. But the issues are still, we go back to square one and ask, is this prosthesis still well fixed? Which is well fixed. Quality of bone doesn't look too bad still, but there would be some bone loss because of the breakage screw and other things. Bone stock is even less because of this. And problem now is because the nail is broken. My worry was that removing that nail would be a problem, can be a problem, I mean. Because if it is well fixed, which it seems on this view that there is no significant gap seen here, it may be very solid there, then it will make a significant problem intraoperatively. And obviously I aspirated it again to see whether there is infection or not. We got a CT scan as well, which confirmed that there is a complete non-union. You can see the line of non-union here and the broken nail and the broken screw. If you remove this, is not a very good CT scan. Probably it should get done at the Dr. Asim's hospital, because you get much better CT scan over there. But looking at these are useful in a way that on this CT scan, you can see significant space between the nails in all the section and even on cross sectional. So that worry that how difficult or easy that nail removal would be gave me some solace that probably it would be easier to remove the proximal nail. So now, what options do we have? So we do a revision osteosynthesis with bone grafting, and second option was revision knee replacement, probably endoprosthesis, because the bone stock would be too less to do a revision knee surgery with this. So if I'm faced with such a difficult case, I always phone a friend. And I think that is a message I want to give as well, that if we have difficult cases, we should take advice and do what needs to be done. So I called a few friends in UK, and I also took advice of Dr. Asim Negi, who is a good friend of mine. And one of my friends said that there is very little bone stock and you should replace it. Do endoprosthesis and that will do with it. That's a major surgery. And two of my friends said that we should give a last chance to this fracture, and there was attempt of fracture healing, so it may unite further. And Dr. Asim's advice was that as well. So we followed that. Dr. Asim was there with me in this case as well. And obviously, bone grafting you have to do, and to get the maximum, we knew that we'll need a lot of bone graft, and the best way is to take it from the posterior iliac crest. You can get a lot of bone graft from there, and if required, you can mix allograft if it is less. So we took that in supine position because we had to do a arthrotomy to remove the nail, and to remove the plate, we opened it from the lateral side. So you can see that this is the head end, this is the foot end, and a long incision, because we would need a long plate, and the plate was removed from this side. And then we expose the proximal fragment, freshen the edges, remove the broken nail, which fortunately was removed very easily. And then next step was to go through subvastus approach, which I routinely do for my arthroplasty patients, to expose the knee from medial side and remove the distal fragment. The distal, this picture is after we didn't take a picture during the arthrotomy. So this is the medial approach, but the plate has been fixed. But this is intraoperative picture where there is a screw there in the distal fragment. That was the broken screw. The head end was still remaining. So, and it was buried in the bone. So we didn't want to damage the distal fragment. So it was located with the K-wire, and carefully that was removed. And then to fix it, we used a variable angle plate from Synthes. And the advantage of that is we have very little bone stock in this, and we wanted to use as much fixation possible in the distal fragment. And you can vary the angle of the screw to achieve the purchase in the opposite cortex. So this was used. And while before fixing, you have to be very careful to make sure that varus valgus alignment is maintained. And once you are happy, you can put 1 or 2 screws. And then when you see there is some recurvatum or hyperextension of the distal fragment, to correct that, what Dr. Negi did, and that's a very good tip to take, is you fix with 2 to 3 bolts in the distal fragment and keep the proximal fragment posterior to the shaft. And when you bring the shaft back to the in line of the shaft, that will flex the distal fragment a little bit. And that was the alignment achieved, which we are happy with. Then further screws were put in. And then through the medial approach, because this is a non-union with bone grafting we were doing, it needs absolute rigidity. So a medial plate was also used to augment the stability, and bone grafts were put in subsequently. So this is the final picture. You see a long lateral plate, the variable angle plate, which is very solid. And on medial side, there is a smaller plate with, and we could get a significant number, about 3 to 4 screws from the lateral side and at least 3 screws in the distal fragment from the medial side. So it's a absolute rigidity was achieved. And this is the immediate post-op X-ray. So you can see that alignment is good, and bone grafts you can see in there. You can see the gap still, but it is packed with the grafts. So it was because there was good fixation, we started mobilizing range of movement exercises immediately from day one, and we kept her non-weight bearing for 6 to 8 weeks. At 8 weeks, when she came for follow-up, this is the X-ray, and position is maintained. You can see there is gap still, but we have to compare this gap to see whether it is consolidating or not. She didn't come for follow-up in between because of COVID. So when she came on maybe a week ago, this was the X-ray, and you can see that the gap is gradually consolidating, and the patient is completely pain-free and moving much better way now. And if you can compare these two X-rays, you can see the consolidation of the fracture on these two. This is 10th of July and this is 11th of March. So this is around 3 months in between. And if we see the clinical picture, so she's comfortable, fully extending, and flexion is almost 120 degrees, which she was doing with the knee replacement as well. And so she is pain. And that is her movement, and she is walking full weight bearing now. In home, doing all her routine day-to-day activities. No supports. And she is a happy patient at the end of the day. Thank you. And if there are any questions, we can take.
Excellent presentation, sir. Pictures, intraoperative pictures, follow-up, video, X-ray. Excellent demonstration. Sir, Manish sir, Jain
Rahul
sir.
sir,
Yes.
just one question. Any precautions taken for infection pre-operatively, intraoperatively, anything?
All these
you were worried
patients,
about?
when they come, you do obviously CVC, ESR, and CRP. ESR and CRP are baseline, so that further, if the infection is increasing, they will be increasing. And I always aspirate these knees or the hematoma. If there is hematoma, I'll separate 2 or 3 aspirations and send it for culture and sensitivity and prolonged sensitivity. I ask them to keep the sample for at least 7 days to see if there is something growing out of it.
And how do? You aspirate in the theater?
I aspirate always in theater.
Always in the
If
theater.
I have a arthroplasty, I always aspirate in theater.
Yes,
I don't want to contaminate the sample.
Yes. And intraoperatively, like you put any antibiotics or to supplement?
Antibiotics we do give at the time of induction only.
Okay, no local antibiotic infiltration like vancomycin or anything. You don't do.
Local antibiotic infiltration I don't do.
No, not infiltration like powder application, vancomycin or anything.
No.
We are worried about.
But there was no evidence of infection intraoperatively or preoperatively as such. This was a fracture, and it was unfortunate for her.
Yeah. Great,
Chaudhary,
very nice plan.
Pradeep
Chaudhary sir wants to ask a question.
Arvind, probably nice case, but nail with a long plate is also not a bad option, Arvind. Probably the previous surgeon would have used a long plate and a nail. Probably that is also not a bad option.
That is true. But I think if you have to fix it primarily, I would not use 2 fixation. If I was the surgeon on day 1, I would use plate, sturdy plate on the lateral side, and hopefully that would suffice in most of the cases. I follow, and if there is any evidence at 3 months that there is fracture is not uniting, or there is I'm worried about it.
Say, if you are going to operate the first surgery, you will do with a single plate and you'll get away with that?
I think
on day 1, I'll use a single plate because
I think that
Okay.
Rahul sir, I think the recommendation right now, if you have a very type 3 distal femur periprosthetic fracture, you should supplement with the medial plate, because in any case you will not be able to get maximum
So
number of
that much a
screws and
small fragment,
stability.
Arvind, probably you require a 2-plate or a
Two
nail or a
plates.
plate. That should help in very small fragment.
The current recommendation.
Maybe.
2 plates
That
are
you-
better usually.
Okay.
But you use 2 approach in this case, Arvind, or a single midline approach was there? The
No, no,
second
no.
surgery.
Lateral plate, lateral approach for the lateral plating, and then subvastus approach for removal of the nail distal fragment and putting a medial plate.
And the
Two
proximal part of the nail is removed through the fracture.
Yes. That,
Okay. Okay.
because the nail was already broken, you have to remove it through the fracture, the
Okay.
proximal bit.
Overall, a nice case and nicely managed.
Very nice.
Very
So
nice
thanks to Dr.
presentation and,
Negi for this
nice
as well.
place.
Very good presentation, sir. So now we are moving on to Dr. Prasad Padgaonkar.
Thank
So
you.
complications do happen in spine also. Prasad. So
Very
Dr.
rare.
Prasad's, you don't know, sir.
Good morning, sir.
So Shailesh sir is also there. Sir, please keep your presentation ready. After Prasad, you will be presenting.
As told you, Akshay, Ravi was
In the case. Dr. Ravi, can you share your screen? So by the time his presentation is getting loaded, we have seen 2 presentations, and I must appreciate the photography, intraoperative images, step-by-step images, follow-up videos. All of us should learn.
And this is the way it should be presented. I love this is really
Yes, excellent presentation, sir.
Very good.
So in the heat of the moment, when
Akshay,
yes, sir.
I want to stress one thing.
Sir.
In this patient, as Dr. Rawal rightly pointed out, that cultures should be taken in the theater with all aseptic precautions, and they should be asked to keep for 7 to 14 days, microbiologists. But most of the time, this one was non-infected, but most of the times when we are asking for culture, patient has already been loaded with tons of antibiotics.
So you have to stop
So
antibiotics.
I am absolutely ruthless. I explain my patient, you need an antibiotic holiday. They are not in septicemia. It's not a bioinfection. So stop antibiotic and ask him to come around 12 to 14 days. That is the time when your aspiration is most likely to give a yield, which is very important to eradicate infection. So if patient is already on antibiotic, stop it and do the cultures and all those things later on.
It seems that you have to have a 10 to 14 days
Yeah,
antibiotic.
holiday, yeah.
Great.
So then you have to have guts to stop antibiotics post these mega surgeries.
Only one day. Evening the last dose goes. सुबह जो ऑपरेट किया है उसको रात को 8 बजे आखिरी डोज मिलेगा. That's the end of the story.
I must say, Asim sir, I gave it for 3 days.
Not justified, sir.
I know.
Arvind, everybody says
आप तो
one day and they all
foreign
get 3
sir.
days.
No. My father also, he underwent a spine surgery. The antibiotic was stopped in 24 hours. He was 70. He was. It was a listhesis, major surgery, TLIF, साथ में. He was non-diabetic. Non-diabetic. He was a post-CABG and 70. It was stopped within 24 hours.
I must
Sir,
say,
the Indian scenario is a little bit different. With the IOA, we are coming with the Indian guidelines.
No,
That
no.
what-
Pradeep, the problem is giving it for 3 days doesn't help. If my patient is not okay on day 5 or 6, I am absolutely comfortable. उसको झूठ बोल के जो तन्ना साहब सिखाता ना, तुमको दर्द नहीं हो इसके लिए तुम्हारा थोड़ा बड़ा ड्रेसिंग करने का, and we'll call an anesthetic so that you don't get pain, and do everything whatever you want to do. And then the patient is given antibiotic for 3 weeks IV and 3-4 weeks oral, depending on the culture. But
Agreed.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir. Sir, let us move on to
The next
the
one.
next case.
So as we are talking about the antibiotics, so this is the case coming for this with the same problem only. So it is one of the case of infection. So Ravi, we can start.
Good morning to all. Myself Ravi Patel, clinical fellow at Indore Spine Center, presenting the case on my worst complication. Slide next.
First click to the screen and then move forward.
Okay. 47 years female, moderately obese, presented in the December 19 in our clinic with the major complaint of right lower limb radiculopathy with tingling and numbness since 1 year. Symptoms is aggravated in last 10 days. Leg pain is more than back pain. Neurogenic claudication is 50 feet. Used to get aggravated by standing and walking. On examination, there is a flexion attitude and forward stooping gait. On tenderness over the right lumbar lower lumbar region. SLRT is right side is 40. On power motor chart is right ankle and anchor plantar flexion is 4 minus. That is sensory deficit. Here is the pre-op X-ray, AP, and lateral view flexion extension. Is suggestive of grade 1 listhesis of L5S1 with reducing disc space 4-5 and some degenerative changes. MRI, sagittal pictures, T2 images from right to left. Seen, there is a modic changes over the L5S1 end plate and 4-5 with diffuse disc bulge over the right side at L4, L5, 2. In axial cut, there is a full facet sign over the 4-5 and L5S1 with foraminal stenosis. We plan for 2-level TLIF, 4-5 and 5S1. Here's the post-op pictures. On the post-op day 2, there is a proximal surgical site skin necrosis, ecchymosis. We do properly routinely do CBC and CRP on the day 2, which shows CBC is normal, hemoglobin is 10.2, TLC is 10,200, nearly normal, CRP is 120 around. We taken plastic surgeon opinion and he advised serial dressing with hydrohel gel on every alternate day because there is a past history of patient about the wound healing. On the day 5, skin necrosis further with mild wound gapping. CBC suggestive of hemoglobin is reduced, CRP is still raised, TLC getting raised. We plan for few staples removal and superficial wound debridement. On the 10th day, the wound gapping is increased, slough formation with necrotic skin. Looking at this wound, we go for second debridement on the same day. On that debridement, we send the blood, urine, and slough tissue for the culture. After second debridement on day 2, we are in second debridement, we are deep-seated wound closer with drain. Then on second day, there is a flap formation with mild skin necrosis. As per blood culture are negative, urine culture suggestive of UTI, E. coli, and slough culture, which was sent, was suggestive of Staph aureus. And antibiotic treatments change accordingly. On the after second debridement on the day of 10, wound deteriorate with the gapping is increased with slough formation, no pus discharge, frank pus discharge. CRP is still high, which is regularly CRP is reduced on the day of 21 within 3 weeks, but we are still high with TLC is increasing. We plan third debridement. We also think of removing implant if we found the deep-seated infection. Otherwise, we go for vac dressing. On intra, we found that there is a no deep-seated beyond the fascia and muscles are normally no infection is there, only superficial infection. There is a one article we show good result but vacuum assisted closure. After the first vac removal, there are very healthy granulation seen, no further infective discharge or slough formation, and we plan for skin grafting. On the day 7 after the skin grafting, there is a good taken up of the skin grafting with mild slough area around 2 centimeter into 2 centimeter, which was non taken up. At the time of 6 weeks, there is already 6 weeks of first operation. There is no implant loosening or screw loosening is seen in X-ray. Here are the 3 weeks post surgery, post skin grafting. Wound is healing. After that, COVID came. COVID. These are the 6 months post-operated X-ray, which show no loosening of no loosening of implant. 6 months wound or held up with no scar or sinuses. There are a review of literature who are suggestive of superficial and late onset skin surgical site infection. Take-home messages: history taking, past history of wound desiccants and delayed wound healing in obese diabetics suggestive of possibility of microangiopathy. Examination: look at the central obesity in short stature. MI Stalevi could have been a better choice. Free of nutrition supplements are good. Vancomycin used to prevent SSI when surgery lasts more than 3 hours. Others are tension-free suture to avoid skin necrosis. Use vac dressing if needed. Thank you.
So very good presentation. Questions are invited. Any questions?
Okay.
Do you do a MRI? Say Asim sir. Sir, first question.
No, please go ahead. I'll ask after you. Yeah.
So do you do a MRI when this patient's wound gets infected and in the meantime, like you're treating the patient?
No, sir. Because on the clinical CBC, CRP, blood investigation and X-ray, there is a no implant loosening or seen. That's why, or in intra, there is a no deep-seated infection. That's why we are not go for MRI, fresh MRI after skin infection.
Okay.
Ravi.
Yes, sir.
Your second debrima was right up to the metal.
No,
you
sir.
did not really elaborate what was done at the time of first and the second debrima.
Second debrima, there is only slough area is presented up to the skin.
You went up to the metal and washed the whole wound, or it was only superficial debrima?
In second debrima, we are going through the up to the implant.
Implant, yeah, that's what.
That's why we are
the answer.
confirming that there is no deep-seated infection.
And washed everything
Yes.
like a formal joint replacement wash. Yeah.
Yes.
So if there was infection, if you could see pus coming out from deep area, like either disc or you see a slough around titanium screw, the head. So would you remove that implant?
Yes, sir, definitely. Because there is an implant glycocalyx formation which are implant coated seen. Then we are removing implants or we use replacement of the implants also.
So you mean to say that you will remove that screw and put a new screw, same sitting? You will just remove the cage if infection is coming out from the disc?
Not same setting.
Okay. So you'll remove the implant, then debride, let wound heal, and then fix it again?
Second, yes.
Ravi, I think that's not correct.
Right. So Prasad, can you elaborate?
Yeah,
So I think
he should be corrected. Yeah,
I think if you feel that the implant is loosened, then
Yeah.
probably removal is
Yes.
acceptable.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Otherwise, you can
Agreed.
just go ahead with debridement and do the needful everything. The wound should be looking completely pink and red. And if implant is good, then there is no need of removal immediately.
In the early post-op, it's not like 6 months, 1 month, 1 year down the line, in fact.
And there was no loosening as seen.
Yes, yes.
As seen on the
Yes.
X-ray, and so
That
there
was
no
probably
doubt that
obesity, fat necrosis, which caused that
Yeah.
wound healing
So
issue.
it is a
it was wound
diabetic patient, short stature patient, and there was a history of previous 3 surgeries she went, all went in delayed wound healing and some kind of secondary suturing or something like that. So probably we missed on that part, that she had a repeated every time she has got a wound healing problem. So probably considering that the last slide which was suggesting that we should have a pre-operative nutritional supplement, then the deep-seated suture also should be taken in the first sitting without any tension suturing, because that was the possibility where wound necrosis was anticipated basically. So that we could have saved pre-operatively by plan.
Prasad,
Yeah.
bringing HbA1c by 1 reduces the risk of infection by almost 25%. I prepared a talk for diabetes, ankle fractures in diabetes.
Okay.
So I reviewed the literature. So there should be these are not emergency surgery.
Yeah,
The patient has got a compound fracture, we can't do anything.
Yes.
But these are planned surgeries. So you bring down the HbA1c below 7. It's like joint replacement. Don't operate above 7.
So this was my first experience where one has to use VAC dressing for surgical site infection.
I have also used in one my patient, same history. We did 3 debridements and wound was not healing and discharge was coming. So we put a VAC and it gave a very good result. Second thing, we generally try to put a drain for a long time till that skin healing appears. So these fatty patients, they tend to have fat necrosis inside and that starts creating wound opening. So if you keep a drain for a bit longer time,
No, but the drain will drain something if there is like
if drain is coming out, if drain is coming out, if drain is draining something.
Problem which we anticipate and what the literature suggests, there the fat globules, they get hypertrophied, and they have got a end arteries supply from one end. So what happens? The globules which are increased in size, they are void of the blood supply, and that is the reason there is only gapping, but not the serous discharge also. So there was just slough. We never had a single drop of pus also.
Right.
So the only thing is this was not an infection, but a wound dehiscence because of the fat necrosis. And that led to our
Rishi, there is a question
Yeah.
from Dr. Arjun Patil whether serum protein test was done and whether cautery was overused.
Yes. No. This was obviously, if cautery is there, it will not necrose the whole tissue, whole incision line. So this was not a cautery burn, and the protein, all the parameters were done regarding the serum protein, serum ferritin, CRP, even the procalcitonin, all those things were negative. But the CRP was not coming down. And the thing is, the wound dehiscence we were seeing the day in, day out, every debridement, suturing, still the problem was persisting. So finally, we took a plastic surgeon opinion. Initially, he suggested that we should just go ahead with the repeated dressings. But then we realized that this is not going the way we want. So finally, he said VAC dressing probably will be the better choice. So he was there as a plastic surgeon, was there on the second and third debridement. So third debridement means second debridement with him. He said, no, let's go ahead with the VAC dressing only. And probably only 7 days of VAC worked very nicely.
Rishi has to ask something, comment.
Yeah, Ravi told about the vancomycin, the surgical site infection. So how do you use vancomycin, locally?
Usually vancomycin 500 milligram powder which comes. So we usually, whenever our surgery lasts more than 3 hours, as per recommendations, we put a vancomycin powder in a local wound.
Okay.
Locally.
So, can you use, if we found infection on day 3 or day 5, can we use that stimulant antibiotic beads or something like that for these type of patients?
I have not.
When we have 2 or 3 debridements, we have already been done.
No, I have not used on post-op these 3 or something like that. Only when the surgical duration lasts more than 3 hours, it is our routine protocol that after the
Repeat.
long retractions, all the muscles which are dead tissue, we debride those muscles and we put a vancomycin powder. So probably there is no necrotic tissue lying there, and if the local antibiotic, it works well. So
Prasad, are you sure that when the surgery lasts more than 3 hours, you go for vancomycin or a repeat IV antibiotic dose?
no,
Repeat.
IV antibiotic is always there, but sir, recommendations are there across the world that there are literatures which are suggesting they use vancomycin as a prophylactic antibiotic locally as a powder.
But you have to repeat the IV dose must after
IV dose
3 hours
also.
surgery.
Yeah, IV antibiotic we use, obviously. That we like, if cefuroxime we are using, we repeat after 3 hours. But the local antibiotic vancomycin, that we are using.
But do you just sprinkle the powder there, Prasad?
Yes.
Prasad,
Yes, sir.
in Nair,
Yes, sir.
anesthetists, they used to be the boss. So a surgeon had to listen to them. So around, say, once he's getting 55 minutes, they were panicky. So they will force surgeon to release the retractor and wait for 5 minutes. That was the rule, and we had to follow that. So this 3 hour, here nobody pushes us. So we keep the retractor and we continue to operate. Those places, anesthetists will insist that is getting an hour, 5-6 minutes of release tourniquet retractor. So that problem was probably much less of forceful retraction going on for a long time and killing the muscle.
That is a good idea, sir.
Yeah, it was mandatory. We had to follow them. You can relax. The assistant will give a wash. He can clean up the things, but retractor has to be removed for 5-6 minutes every hour.
Surgeon gets relaxation in between.
Yeah.
Whatever, but it was mandatory. And because they were the boss, so we had no choice. We have to follow them. You can't overrule in those places.
Okay, so now we are short of time. So Prasad, very nice presentation. Dr. Ravi, very nice presentation. We are moving on to Dr. Shailesh Gupta, sir. Sir, can you share your screen, Shailesh, sir?
Sure. Can you see that?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Not able to.
There is a background sound is there.
There is some background sound. I'll just. Other people, please unmute yourselves, or I will mute all. You can start, Shailesh, sir.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. And this time my presentation don't have a complete pre-op, post-op, and everything available because of certain issue with my hard disk. Before I go with my complication related to the external central application, I just wanted to update. A day before yesterday, I posted a suspected patient of the mucormycosis in hand. If everybody remember, it turned out to be branching non-septate fungal mycelia. So it's most likely a mucormycosis of the hand, and it is probably first or second to best of my knowledge reported. So let's move on. Whenever you do any complication management, the first strategy which comes in your mind is whenever you are having a complication, first save yourself by proving that you have done all things scientifically, methodically, and it should be theoretically correct. Then try to find out some other costs and involve more person in the management. Of course, you need to manage the complication and you need to do the whatever the best in the interest of the patient to get the good outcome. This forearm fracture of isolated radius, which happened around 7 months post distal radius fracture surgery done by myself by the external fixator. It's around 18 years back. Patient suddenly came after 7 months having almost normal function since last 3 to 4 months, came with that there is a popping sound and I am having a severe pain in the forearm. The X-ray was done and X-ray shows the fracture tooth is still intact, pentract through the bone, and to my surprise, it had happened after 7 months of the fixator application. During that early period of my practice, I used to use the distractor, which are having a clamp with a fixed distance between the two pins, and I used to have a shank spring. Never realized what can be the probable cause and couldn't confirm about it, but definitely two things came in my mind. One is a subclinical infection, and second thing was some metabolic bone disorder, which otherwise all pin track is considered to be healed after 6 weeks of the pin removal of fixator pin removal or shank pin removal. Fortunately, everything came normal and we did the plating and everything went fine. After that complication, I stopped using the external fixator in the distractor mode. I use it as a neutralizing mode so that I can put a more distance between two pins during the pin insertion. Another complication happened following sural flap surgery for the heel avulsion. I did the debridement and flap, sural neurocutaneous flap, and one of my orthopedic colleagues put external fixator. The fixator was put because to prevent a constant pressure on the flap to prevent the flap necrosis. The patient was having a polytrauma, can't turn on the back. She was having a shoulder fracture, elbow fracture, and opposite wrist fracture. So orthopedic colleague put a fixator, and 2 months down the line, there was a sudden popping and there was a pin track fracture to the pin track side. That was after the removal of the fixator. The fixator was removed after 3 weeks. Once the flap has been taken up, the fixator was removed after 3 weeks. Unfortunately, again, I don't have the X-ray, and that the fracture was very well treated in the plaster application, Abhavani plaster application. The fracture was undisplaced, and this was a final follow-up after about 7 to 8 years. This patient I already presented in our meeting 3 years back. The patient has a multiple surgery in past, probably 2 and 3 surgery, having a distal radius fracture like this with a deformity, not able to use the hand and I thought I can do something, or at least I will be able to do something for that, or at least I will be able to correct some deformity so that at least I can give a cosmetically appearing forearm, wrist, and hand, or maybe I would. I was trying to be myself hero that okay, I would try this stage also, this type of thing. And I was also thinking what a lousy job done elsewhere. Had a K-wire infection, then another K-wire, and the things are lying like this. These are the pictures before surgery. I opened it up. I couldn't put the plate. That was a very thin rim of this thing. So what we did, we excised some portion of the ulna. We used it as a bone graft, and I could fix only with the K wires and then put a neutralizing external fixator. And then after some time, the things after 2 months of the pin and all this thing, then fixator was removed and he was put on the above elbow plaster. Another for 1.5 months. So total 3 months of immobilization. And once the plaster was removed, 3 weeks after the plaster removal, he came suddenly with this type of fracture, that there is another pentract fracture. I was worried what is going on with this type of patient. This is the 4th surgery he is undergoing and the bone is failing to unite. So I referred the patient to endocrinologist for the cause of, to rule out any pathological condition behind this repeated fracture, non-union, is he suffering from some metabolic bone disorder? Then once the endocrinologist started thinking about the cause of osteoporosis, thinking about the cause of osteoporosis in the male patient, then one of the reason can be androgenic deficiency. So then he started doing the hormone analysis, and we find out the major hormones were deficient which are arising from the pituitary. Then he did the MRI of the pituitary area and it found to be the empty cellular testicle syndrome. The hormone therapy was correct. Hormone therapy was given and then the plate was applied, and to our surprise, within a, sorry, I just forgot I just wanted to add some post-op exercise, but I couldn't get it. The fractures was completely united, distal radius was completely united, and everything went perfectly fine. That's all. Total 3 complication of pentract fracture site around, after doing around 350 or 400 external fixator in the hand in all. Thank you very much. And let me try to find out the meanwhile we continue with the discussion, and let me try to find out the immediate the long-term follow-up with the complete union of the bone. So the fault was probably the metabolic, and we were trying to correct. So thanks to the endocrinologist who tried to did all the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, excellent presentation. Questions are invited. Expert comments from Jain, sir. You want to say something? Sir.
No, nothing specific. Shailesh is
Shailesh,
always
sir.
doing good.
No, not always. I just wanted to share the immediate, the long-term post-op X-ray. I somehow missed somewhere. Anyway, we'll
Just
have-
on a lighter note, when you last time shown a foot X-ray on your presentation? Foot film.
About 4 years back, I think there was again a flap.
No, Shailesh has done one gastrosoleus flap for one of my heel patient also. I remember.
But
Shailesh, sir.
Yes.
Shailesh, for your information, that boy is doing his engineering now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Manish,
Shailesh,
sir.
Yeah, I want to ask one question. What have you changed your practice now? Now you are using your without sand screws, just K-wires, and what is the size of K-wire you are using?
Yes.
Depending on the size of the bone, you vary.
Okay.
Or
The thing which has changed is for the distal radius fracture, I am no longer using the distractor. I am using an external fixator in a neutralizing mode, so that I can put the pins farther apart without any trouble, at least about 2 centimeters. Second thing, I no longer use the shank spin. Shank spins get more often loosened than the K-wire. In one of the conference, Sudhir Warrior sir was saying, I always use a K-wire. I said, I use a shank spin. Don't you see the K-wire get loosened? He said, nothing. I said, logically, the shank spin should be more stable. Then what I did was I started doing the experiment. I put one shank spin, one K-wire, one shank spin, one K-wire in around 10 consecutive cases. I find shank spin to be more loosened up than the K-wire. So I completely shift to the K-wire. My proximal pill in distal radius is now 2.5 mm.
Shailesh, plain K-wire or threaded K-wire?
Plain K-wire. Plain K-wire. Plain K-wire.
So,
and now, distal shank spin, distal K-wire is 2.5 or 2 mm.
Sir, So you'd vary your size of K-wire depending on the thickness of the
Depending
bone?
upon the thickness of the, depending upon the size of the patient.
Size of the bone.
Size of the patient.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
So
I-
it can be less
Robust
also.
built up.
Akshay,
Yes,
I
sir.
want Anil Mahajan sir to comment on the role of fractures. Anil Mahajan sir is here. I
Yes,
think
Anil
he's
Mahajan
here.
sir is here. Sir, can you unmute yourself?
I don't think so.
Yes, Akshay.
Yes, sir. Jain sir is asking, sir, your opinion.
Sir, can't we do Elizarov in
Role
these
of
type of
Elizarov.
cases?
Why not?
So, these type of distal radius fractures with
Definitely.
aluminium rings that is available nowadays, it's more comfortable. All wire assembly.
We can do it very well. Small fixator sets are available, small rings are available, and it is very biological also. We can do it very well.
Shailesh,
Yes, sir.
let him complete. Anil, yeah. Anil bhai bolo.
Sir, कर सकते हैं. बिल्कुल
Have
कर
you
सकते
done it? Next meeting, you bring one case where you used it, those newer Elizaros with aluminum rings.
I have
Okay.
done, sir.
Okay.
I'll show it.
Yeah, sir. And who is making it?
Sir, you get it everywhere, sir.
Nah,
In Indore
aluminium
also.
wala.
Yeah,
Aluminium wala.
Yeah.
Okay.
आपको
Shailesh
क्या
bhai, there is
चाहिए?
only one suggestion that
Sir.
unless you put your pins or K-wires or whatever fixation at least more than an inch away, minimum
Yes.
2.5 centimeter, it still acts as 1 point. So 2 centimeter is not enough. There should be space more than that. Minimum will be
Okay.
around 2.5 or maybe even more. Then
A
only it
thumb
About
gives
inch.
you.
About
A
inch.
thumb breadth.
Yeah.
About
A
inch.
thumb breadth is the ideal.
Yeah.
About inch. Thank you.
Okay. So, no more questions. Excellent presentation, Shailesh sir. Let us move on to our last presentation. Dr. Rishi, can you share your screen?
Yes, I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes. Make it full screen.
Sorry.
Yeah. So
Slideshow.
this is my-
Rishi, slideshow.
I've done it, sir.
Okay. Okay.
नीचे का जो फुल स्क्रीन वाला वो है आइकन उस पर
Yeah. अभी नहीं हुआ.
No, it is not slideshow.
Okay, just a minute, sir.
रावल साहब ने भी उसको स्लाइड शो में कन्वर्ट नहीं किया था तो साइड में दिख रहा था.
Is it okay now, sir?
No.
No.
Just a minute, sir.
आप नीचे राइट हैंड में सबसे
नीचे
नीचे
नीचे राइट में ऋषि. यस. नीचे
यहाँ
वो
पे
जो स्क्वायर है.
यस यही वाला
screen
करो.
उससे सिलेक्ट हो गया सर, पर ये
उधर टॉप पे भी रहता है. एट द टॉप ऑफ द स्क्रीन भी एक स्लाइड शो लिखा हुआ है विंडोज में. हाँ, अब हुआ. या हो गया.
So, she was a 60-year-old female patient who suffered a fall at home and on a previously operated limb. She was associated with some elbow or shoulder injury for which the radiographs are not available. This KNL was done in 1985 and she had no other comorbidities, and pre-injury she was able to do all her routine activities without any difficulty. So this was her hip with pelvis deportic X-ray showing the previous subtrochanteric fracture, which was well united. Now the options at this stage were the removal of implant and then plan for a distal femur plate or nail or any other option if somebody can guide me.
Dr. Rishi, probably we need more images. There might be intercondylar component. We need a CT probably.
Yeah, actually, sir, no other images were available because it was done outside.
Rishi, your voice is being low. Please either be close to the mic or something.
Yeah, the distal femur, actually we don't have more images because it was an outside. It was COVID time, so she couldn't come to me. So she got operated somewhere, and
Okay, when you finish.
This was the post-op X-ray that was done that time. So this was the radiograph taken at 1 month post-op in May 2020, I think, and she was allowed edge weight bearing, and no weight bearing was allowed till 3 months. And again in March 2021, around 8 or 9 months down the line, she started having increasing pain, and this walking distance started to go down. So she got the radiographs, which came out like this. 1 year post-op. At this time, she came to me and she was walking only few steps. Again, from stick, she was back to walker support. There was no fever or rest pain or no local warmth or tenderness. The range of motion was good. I think last extensor lag was around 20 degrees. And last 30 degrees, means 60 to 90 degrees was at the fracture site. The fracture site was mobile at this time, and the true shortening was around 3 centimeters. Blood work came out to be normal. CBC, CRP counts all were normal. Just to rule out the infection part, we did all those. So what went wrong at this stage, I just wanted to discuss. These were the 6 points I could think of what went wrong, and the story went from here to here.
Dr. Rishi, can I comment?
Yeah, sure. Surely, please.
See, anywhere the medial void in proximal humerus or proximal femur or distal femur is not acceptable. If there is void is there, you have to correct it either a bone graft or a medial plate. That medial void in this 3 situations, proximal humerus, proximal femur and distal femur, is not acceptable. That will probably go ultimately give into varus. And secondly,
Varus
the plate,
collapse.
and yeah, that will go into varus and that will create a problem.
Yeah. But in this patient, the collapse was on the posterior side. I mean, that's what
it is a posterior medial defect. You can see that.
Yeah, the posterior medial defect is there, sure.
Yeah, so that cannot be acceptable.
Yeah. So I thought there was some rotational malalignment also at this stage, which caused some of the problems, and there was a defect was increased in size because of the rotational malalignment also. And previous osteoarthritis also, I think, contributed for the increased stress at the fracture site. So anyways, this was the radiographs we got her here, and also the subtrochanteric part had some cystic lesion, which we are not sure what was the reason for that. Yeah, so somebody was asking something, sir. So
Just go ahead.
Options, what are the options we have at this stage for proceeding forward? I mean, obviously the removal implants, debridement, wash, shingling, and bone grafting are sort of the common answers. But what type of implant should we go ahead for? So, any of the seniors who can guide me?
Anyone? Manish, sir? Anyone wants to
rule out the infection? First thing is to rule out the infection.
Was almost the investigations came out to be normal, and there was no local tenderness or riser. In fact, she was actually walking few steps on this. So she was painful, but not much.
More of a mechanical failure over here.
Yeah, more.
Manoj Baid sir is here. Sir, you want to comment anything?
Hi, Akshay.
Sir, morning.
My opinion, hi, good morning. Still, after breaking of implant, there is no varus component. I mean, is saying here. See, fracture still is not in varus. So in my opinion, do again same surgery. Yeah, either dual plating with bone grafting will be definitely beneficial here, I suppose.
So the proximal fracture.
Proximal part.
Proximal part, yes, definitely. I don't know the exact. Is it non-union or if it is non-union, then definitely you have to go for a longer plate than just a femur nail with bone grafting.
Akshay, may I comment?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think it's very important, especially for the PGs and freshers, that this distal femur plate cannot be less than 12 to 14 hole. That is the minimum plate which should be used. So most of these plates will be going right up to here. The big mistake is to choose a shorter plate. People are afraid of taking a longer incision, or you don't really have to take a longer incision. You can expose this area and pass 1 or 2 screws in this area, and the remaining can be through a separate window higher up. But this plate is most of the time very short, and especially when there was a fracture, though it was 10 years, 15 years old, he had to take this plate up to almost lesser trough. He was obliged to, because there was a fracture and a stress riser there. Then another common mistake which we see is that this screw. Rishi, can you point out that screw closer to the fracture site?
Yes, sir, sure.
Yeah. So this screw is the culprit. There should not be any screw around 1.5 to 2 centimeter proximal and distal to that fracture area. And you try to fill up maximum screws in the distal fragment, almost all in the distal fragment metaphysis, and higher up your plate should have at least 4 locking bolts, but they are all one empty, one filled up type. So at least 8 or 9 holes beyond the fracture, proximal most fracture line, going right up to almost lesser trochanter. I think that will. Plus, I am least hesitant to accept a bit of shortening and increase the bone contact rather than facing this type of failure. So don't hesitate to shorten 5 or 6 or 7 millimeters to have a better contact. That will save your fixation from failing. And don't put screws closer to the fracture site.
Seems that probably the plate length here is okay. Only thing is probably I'll see the screw close to the fracture is a culprit here.
Yeah.
Pradeep bhai, what about the medial, posteromedial void? What you were talking this before? Is it really culprit, or you are now changing your statement?
No, that medial void has to be filled, Manoj bhai. Medial void has
That
to be
is
filled.
okay. That is okay. You want to fill it with the graft, or you want to fill it with the plate? I mean,
Primarily,
you want to
I'll
support.
put a plate. Primarily, if a fracture is a fresh one, I'll not put a bone graft. I'll just put a plate.
But even after implant failure, you don't see any medial or posterior void. I mean, any varus deformity, even after failure of implant.
That failure itself is
I think maybe
because of the medial void and the screw close to the plate. Lot of stress is going on the plate because of that void.
Yes. Yeah.
Akshay?
Yes, sir. Manish, sir.
I think after removal of implant, we can do, it's the best thing is to do a long distal femur nail right up to the lesser trochanter, and a long distal femur plate used as a spanning neutralization plate with the proximal locking in distal nail as well as the plate, and put bone grafting. That is my opinion.
So, I just wanted to ask about the knee stiffness. I mean, the knee seems to be stiff. So, will we get the position for DFN? That was the question in my mind when I was planning this.
You have to
entry
do some
point of the
bit of.
knee is maximum intercondylar area.
You need around 35 degree of knee bending, 45 degree, and then you have to release quadriceps. And once your fixation is done, then you can manipulate.
Dr. Rishi, somehow whatever you do, you have to bypass that proximal fracture. Either you do the long plate or what Manish said, you do the long. If you're not able to flex the knee, then a long plate, a medial plate, and a bone graft. You have to bypass that fracture. You cannot left a straight riser there.
Yeah, that's what the thought was the same, but we couldn't get the distal femur multi-lock nailing available. It was not available in Indore, and the transportation was tricky, so we had to plan for a proximal femur nail and a distal femur LCP along with that. This is how we proceeded, and to bypass the proximal fracture, we used the nail and fix it with 2 proximal locking bolts. And this one was the simple bolt, and this one we could get a locking bolt. And distally, we could actually pass these 2 holes through the plate. I mean, the interlocking bolts of the nail. So that's how we planned and we proceeded. And bone graft was taken from posterior iliac crest and impacted all through the fracture to correct the posterior medial void. And this was the intra photos. This was the lateral position, and we could actually get more than 90 degrees of the knee flexion over here. And this was the final fixation with us. In this position, we could do all the things simultaneously in the lateral position. And this was the immediate post-operative graft. So, comments from the seniors.
Rishi, your excuse was not using distal femur nail was there was multi-lock nail was not available. But you using the same nail with the lateral to medial screw in the same PFN.
Yeah, same PFN we have used. This
probably the thicker distal femur nail would be better here.
Yes.
With the lateral medial screw and then the plate.
Yeah, you can use the plate, as a supplement screw.
But for the distal femur nail, actually we had to do it in the supine position, and to do all those things in supine position is a bit tricky, because you have to bone graft it also, and
you can
frequently change the position. I mean, that overall increases the duration of the surgery, and so I thought in single position we can do actually all the things. Even with PFN, I think it would stabilize in the equal fashion.
One question to Asim sir.
Bolo.
Sir, juxta fracture proximal screw of the plate.
Yeah.
It is against the principle that you discussed.
Which one here?
This one, the second. Yeah. This one.
Sorry,
it is very close to the fracture.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. He shouldn't have put it. But he says, I asked him, he says that it is going through the locking hole in the bolt.
But sir, Asim sir, I still feel why you prefer PFN, not the nail.
No, I wasn't there on the table. I would have done double plating for this. I wasn't there. I wasn't even consulted before doing this.
But
if I am doing a
PFN probably not needed here. I'll still say if you wanted to use a nail, then use the distal femur nail.
Distal femur nail with augmentation plate, or I will use a double plate if it wasn't available.
Double plate is also okay.
You need
double
absolute
plate is
stability.
also very true.
One plate going right up to the neck from distal end and lateral, and a comparatively smaller medial plate and graft.
Agreed. 2 implant, either 2 plate or 1 nail plate.
Yeah, and she will be fine. And all non-unions, you must mobilize. Suppose you are doing a supracondylar humerus, any side, the joint above and below ought to have decent range of motion. Don't leave joint stiff. Otherwise, whatever you do, it will fail. So knee has to be at least 100-degree flexion achieved on table. It has to be.
One question to
Pradeep.
Pradeep.
That mobilization of the neighboring joint will also
neighboring joint is extremely important. Yeah, extremely important.
One question to Pradeep Chaudhary sir.
Ore baapre, bolo.
Pradeep, will you put a fibula on the medial aspect for the void?
No, I'll put a straight graft only. There is a graft from the iliac crest only. No need to fibula. If there is a bone gap through and through, then I'll try to fit fibula. Otherwise, there is no need. I'm putting a medial plate, then the graphs are sufficient for iliac crest.
Okay.
May
So,
I suggest something? Yeah.
Asim sir. So it means if you do a longer plate with DFN, or if you do longer plate laterally and the medial plate also is small, it will suffix for the proximal fragment and this supracondylar part also.
Yeah.
I mean, in
almost,
ideal conditions.
Give me 1 minute. Primarily, I hardly ever resort to double plate. The primarily is a biological single strong lateral plate, which is very long and done very nicely, meticulously biological. In case there is a doubt, as Pradeep rightly pointed out, there is a posteromedial void and it can fail there. Patient is told that around 6 weeks X-ray to 8 weeks will decide whether you are throwing enough callus or not. If your body, and the blame doesn't go on the surgeon, blame goes on the patient. If your body is not making enough new bone, not enough callus, then we'll put some खाद पानी देगा उसको, और जब वो करेगा तो फिर अपन चुपचाप उसमें एक मीडियल प्लेट भी डाल देगा. क्या वो ज्यादा पेशेंट को ज्ञान नहीं उस समय देता है. बट आई विल से इट्स नॉट, यूनियन इज नॉट एडिक्वेटली fast enough. You need some additional help, which is in the form of graft, and that time I will add a second plate. Hardly ever I do a double plating primarily. In the non-union situation, for me, it's a 2 plate and graft and everything and compression and mobilization of the joint, and nothing is left to chance. So my preferred thing is double plate. And about this fibula thing, I am not really very fond of fibula. What I prefer is that I take posterior iliac crest graft. If the quantity is still not enough, then I will mix it with allograft tata bone, and then at times I have used a dorsal spine cage. They come in different diameters. So I pack that cage, which Mukhi has tried to propagate, and take it intramedullary, and that acts as a strut rather than a fibula. That is what I have done in 2-3 patients.
Yes, sir. Fibula will take long time to incorporate, and it will. It is not a good thing to use unless until there is a definite bone loss.
Agreed. Probably in this patient you don't need a fibula. It will. It would have been all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the 2 months post-op X-ray, and this was, I think, last week, the first week of June, we got the X-rays. And this was how the patient, actually the video is not working. Otherwise, this was almost 90 degrees of knee flexion, and she was walking full weight bearing with walker.
Rishi, you are lucky one.
Yeah. Surgeon has to be lucky also. Yeah, it seems to be healing up. 5 months is not looking bad.
Not sure.
Yeah, not sure. You can't be sure till 2 years in these patients.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the advantage of nail with a plate, I thought, was just that you could mobilize on day 1 with full stress, so that to avoid stress at this fracture site. And this screw was through the nail. So I think it was the nail which was avoiding the stress riser at this point. And this was actually a non-locking screw. So I think it was not making the construct too rigid, so as not to allow the callus formation at this point of the posteromedial cord.
No, but Rishi, that screw is not going through the distal fragment. It is in the proximal fragment. So it is not adding to your stability. Yeah, it's not adding to your stability of the distal part of the fixation. So
no, it's not adding to the stability, sir. It's just for the nail and plate making a single construct through the nail.
Okay,
and
I get what you are saying. Yeah.
So it avoids the
joining them. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a single construct for nail and plate. So that allows the stress to be distributed all through the nail, and the construct is more of a weight sharing rather than a weight bearing implant. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you all the teachers for giving the opportunity at this place.
Thank you, Rishi. So it was an excellent presentation, and this was the last presentation. We had a great discussion, and I would request Dr. Jayant Sharma sir, and after that Dr. Manish Ladhania sir to sum up the meeting and give us some take-home messages. Jayant Sharma sir. Jayant sir, Manish sir.
Yeah. So it was excellent case presentation, and especially by Dr. Asim Negi, Dr. Rawal sir, and then Rishi, Shailesh Gupta sir. Very beautiful tips. The most important thing was how to plan to deal with complication. It was seen by like Dr. Asim Negi, who explained all the interoperative tricks, how to execute them, look at minor things, and that is the key to success of managing the complications. I think this has to be planned very precisely before contemplating any complications. That I think that should be the take-home message.
Okay, sir. Jayant Sharma sir, are you there? So I request Dr. Malay Kumar sir, our president, to say a vote of thanks, and then after that, Dr. Tanmay sir has to make an announcement. Malay sir.
So the beauty of today's meeting in meeting of complications in orthopedic surgery, we have all different type of complications in orthopedic surgery, starting from periprosthetic fractures, intra-articular fractures, hand complications in hand surgery, complications in spinal surgery. This is something really appreciable and good. So take home message again, I'll say, see in wherever you are stuck up or in cases of complication, you should always involve more and more person, and always try to phone a friend first. And again, judicious use of antibiotics. And secondly, as Dr. Negi has rightly told, in all intra-articular fractures, you should get a CT scan done before you plan out something, just to save your skin and beneficial for the patient. So I would like to.
All specialty are getting complication, so no one is spared.
Yeah, but then, sir, at least we have. There was no two similar presentation. It was just.
Agreed.
Sir, the idea was that we include all specialties like trauma, joint, spine. We could not get anything from Scopy.
There, but they are managed nicely.
To minimize the complication. Right.
Yes.
So we are really thankful to all the participants today, and Chairman Dr. Jayant Sharma sir, and Dr. Manish Ladhania, and Bhupesh, so for helping us out, and especially the team here, starting from Tanmay, Akshay, Pranav, those who are working effortlessly behind to make it a grand success, and another thanks to Ahmed, makers of Cartesian Pro and Synertab and Tendocare for sharing, for being a part of this voluntary, for this part of academic feast by us. So thanks a lot, and hope to see you offline very soon.
Yes.
Yeah, we were actually ready to have the entire all meetings for the year offline, physical meetings, but then this second surge came in and really destroyed everything. So was hopefully, let's see, and we would try, probably if we get permissions from next month, we will try to get it more interactive and more physical. Any specific recommendations from the from speakers, from the chairman, co-chairman, and the other members available today, on which specifically we should be keeping our next meet kind of thing? Any specific recommendations from anyone regarding topics on what we should keep? One announcement I need to make. A lot of people do have problems regarding some technology usage as far as doctors are concerned. So I'm trying to get a good speaker on that. You all must be knowing Dr. Neeraj Bijlani. He's a great guy in technology from orthopedics itself. So I am trying to get him online for a webinar, planning to have a webinar next month with him, so that we all can be benefited, because small tips and tricks he can give for us, so that how to utilize our technology and equipments to the best of their nature. and what apps should we use and what we should not, and all those things. So that way is we would wish to have that talk. So that was the announcement I need to make. So please do convey to your fellow colleagues as well. So let's hope we get the best out of it. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you.
One more special announcement.
Thank you.
There was a
all
request
speakers.
from Indore management, Indore administration. Please propagate vaccination. Tomorrow is a mega drive, so please, it's a request from administration of Indore to all whom we can propagate.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we can stop the recording
Okay.
now, and we can stop the